It's the summer of 2004. A 22-year-old Brazilian just won the Copa América. He scored 7 goals in the tournament. 7. He was named player of the tournament. His country is calling him the next Ronaldo. The entire football world is watching him and thinking, this kid is going to be the best player on the planet. And then, 9 days later, 9 days, his phone rings. And the voice on the other end says 4 words. Adri, Dad is dead. Everything you're about to watch, the drinking, the weight, the disappearance, the gangs, the wasted talent, it all started in that one moment. And nobody really talks about how deep that wound went. This is the story of Adriano Imperator, the Emperor of Milan, the man who, for one brief electric moment, was the most feared striker on the face of the earth, and then just stopped. To understand what Adriano lost, you first have to understand where he came from. He grew up in Vila Cruzeiro, one of the most dangerous favelas in all of Rio de Janeiro. This wasn't poverty in the soft sense. This was a place controlled by drug gangs, where gunshots were background noise, where survival was a daily negotiation. His father, Almir, was the kind of man that place tried to eat. He had a bullet lodged in his skull for years, literally a bullet, from the violence of that neighborhood. He survived, and he made sure his son had something to hold on to: football. From the moment Adriano could kick a ball, Almir was there, not in a pushy way, in the way only a father from a place like that can be, quietly, fiercely, with everything he had. Football wasn't just a hobby for Adriano. Football was his father's dream handed to him. Every goal he scored for his dad. At 18, Flamengo gave him his senior debut. He scored in his second appearance, at that age, in that league, and within months, Inter Milan came calling. His first spell at Inter didn't go perfectly, so they loaned him out, and that's when something clicked. At Parma, Adriano was terrifying. 23 goals in 37 Serie A games. People watching him play talked about his left foot like it was supernatural. Not just powerful, precise. He could hit a ball from 30 yards and make it move like a missile with a guidance system. Defenders knew it was coming and still couldn't stop it. Inter had let him go. They realized immediately they'd made a mistake, and in January 2004, they paid 23.5 million euros to bring him back. He repaid them instantly, 13 goals in the second half of that season. Inter qualify for the Champions League. The fans gave him a name that sends chills: L'Imperatore di Milano, the Emperor of Milan. That summer, he went to the Copa América with Brazil, and he didn't just play well, he dominated. 7 goals. Final against Argentina, injury time, Brazil are level. Adriano steps up and curls one into the net. Pure instinct, pure ice in his veins. After the final, through tears, he grabbed a microphone and said, "This title belongs to my father. He is my great friend in life. Without him, I am nothing." 9 days later, his father was gone. Javier Zanetti was in the room when it happened. The Inter captain, one of the most composed, professional men in football history, has talked about this moment. And every time he does, you can hear it still hurts him. He said, "He threw the phone and started screaming. You couldn't imagine that kind of scream. I get goosebumps even to this day." Zanetti and club president Massimo Moratti essentially adopted Adriano after that. They watched over him like a younger brother. Adriano kept playing, kept scoring, dedicated every single goal to the sky, to his father. And in the 2004-05 season, he had the best numbers of his life. 28 goals in all competitions. Inter won the Coppa Italia. He was the best striker in Serie A, but Zanetti knew. He knew that behind the goals, something was breaking. He said, "We did not succeed in pulling him out of depression, and that is perhaps my biggest defeat in a whole career. It still hurts me. I was so powerless." Think about that. Zanetti is talking about winning trophies and lifting Champions Leagues, and the thing he calls his biggest defeat is not being able to save his teammate. Meanwhile, Adriano himself later wrote about what was happening behind closed doors. He said, "I was alone, sad and depressed in Italy, and that's when I started drinking. I did not know how to hide it because I was drunk even at training. I had to sleep it off in Inter's medical room, while the press was told I had muscle pain. The club was covering for him. inventing injuries, buying time. But you can't buy time from grief. Inter gave him a new 5-year contract in September 2005. They believed in him that much. And for one more season, he gave them 19 goals and a Serie A title. But by 2006, the cracks were visible to everyone. Brazil's magic quartet at the World Cup, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, Kaká, and Adriano, was supposed to be the greatest attacking lineup in history. Instead, they were eliminated in the quarterfinals. Adriano barely showed up. He wasn't the same player who had terrorized defenses 2 years earlier. The weight had changed. The eyes had changed. When Zlatan Ibrahimović arrived at Inter, he immediately told the club president, "I demand that Adriano stays. He is the player I want to play with." Zlatan later described him as something close to a football alien. He said, "He could shoot from every angle. Nobody could tackle him. Nobody could take the ball. He was a pure animal." And yet, even Zlatan, one of the most mentally forceful players ever, couldn't reach him. Inter eventually sent Adriano back to Brazil on unpaid leave. Then again. Then for good. There were brief flashes of the old magic. He helped Flamengo win the league. He went back to Europe with Roma, and then his ankle went. Then his shoulder. 8 appearances and gone again. And then came the images nobody wanted to see. Adriano in the favela. Overweight. Surrounded by members of the Red Command, one of Rio's most feared criminal gangs. Men he'd known since childhood. Men from Vila Cruzeiro. The same streets his father had fought to get him out of. He'd come full circle. Not in triumph. In retreat. He retired in 2016, 34 years old. 48 caps for Brazil. 27 international goals. He sold his £1.2 million mansion and gave away almost everything, kept only his trophies. And then something happened that made the whole world stop for a moment. In 2021, Adriano was inducted into the Maracanã Stadium Walk of Fame, standing alongside Pelé, Ronaldinho, Romario, Zico, Garrincha, the greatest Brazilians who ever played the game. When he found out, he broke down completely. Tears, hands over his face, like a man who never really believed he deserved to be remembered. And a couple of years ago, he was invited back to the San Siro. Inter brought him home. And when he walked through those doors and heard that crowd, 22 years after he'd first become the emperor, he couldn't speak. He said, "So many thoughts came to mind, memories of what I'd achieved at Inter, how it shaped me as a person." He still lives simply, back near the favela where he grew up. He said his belly button is buried there, that it's where he belongs. Maybe that's true. Or maybe Adriano Imperator never really left the moment his father's heart stopped. And everything since has just been a man trying to find a reason to keep going without the one person who made it all make sense. Zlatan said he was a pure animal. Zanetti said saving him was the battle he lost. The fans at the San Siro called him Emperor. But Adriano himself said it simplest. When someone asked him what happened to his career, he replied, "Brother, it's simple. I have a hole in my ankle and one in my soul. One in my ankle and one in my soul. Rest easy, Emperor."